Introduction and Character. Introduction. The rain poured down relentlessly, tapping against the windows of my small office. My name is Alex, and I'm a detective in the city. You could say I'm not your typical detective. I'm still learning the ropes, especially when it comes to speaking English. I grew up in a small town where everyone spoke my language. But moving to the city, things changed. People speak fast, and sometimes it feels like a whole new world. Tonight, however, everything was about to change. I was sitting at my desk trying to focus on some paperwork when the phone rang. It was late and I wasn't expecting any calls. I picked it up, hoping for something simple. "Hello? Who is this?" I asked. The voice on the other end was shaky, almost desperate. "I need your help, fast," the voice said. The words echoed in my head. The tone was urgent and I knew I had to act quickly. But there was a problem. The person on the phone didn't speak my language. They were speaking English. "Where are you?" I asked, trying to keep calm. "I'm at the old library," they replied, almost breathless. I didn't know much about this place, but I knew I had to get there, and fast. But here's the thing. This wasn't just about solving a case. It was about facing a bigger challenge. English. I needed to communicate quickly if I wanted to help this person. And that's when I realized, in the middle of a stormy night, that this was my chance to finally learn how to use English in real-life situations. Now, before we dive in, I want you to join me. As we go through this adventure, I'll be speaking in English. I want you to repeat the words and phrases with me. Ready? Let's go. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. The rain was still coming down in sheets as I grabbed my coat and rushed out of the office. The streets were slick and empty, the only sound being the echo of my footsteps against the wet pavement. I didn't know where the old library was, but the voice on the phone had mentioned it clearly. I couldn't waste time figuring it out. As I hurried down the street, I tried to recall any details I'd heard about this place, the old library, a forgotten building at the edge of town, full of mystery. But I had no time for mystery. I had to focus on the task ahead, getting there and figuring out how to help this person who had called me in English. "Where exactly is the old library?" I muttered to myself, hoping someone on the street could help me. A man walked by, his umbrella barely covering him from the rain. I stopped him. "Excuse me, sir, where is the old library?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He looked at me, and after a pause, he said in a thick accent, "It's not far. Go straight, then turn left at the corner." "Is it far from here?" I asked again, repeating the question in case I hadn't understood. He nodded. "No, not far." "Thank you," I said, and I continued walking. My mind was racing. Was I going to be able to help this person? Could I really understand enough English to solve this? My thoughts were interrupted by the sound of another voice. "Are you lost?" A woman standing at the corner asked me. She smiled, but I could tell something wasn't right. She seemed to be waiting for something, maybe for me to speak in English. "Yes, I'm looking for the old library," I replied. I wasn't sure if I was using the right words, but I hoped she'd understand. "The old library?" she repeated, her eyes widening. "It's dangerous over there." "You shouldn't go." I wasn't sure what she meant by dangerous. But I couldn't turn back now. The person on the phone needed me. I nodded and said, "I'll be careful. Thank you." I walked on, thinking about how this simple conversation had already taught me so much. "Where is... and is it far from here?" were simple phrases, but they were essential. This was the type of English I needed. Practical, direct, and useful for situations like this. By now I was close to the library. The old, dark building loomed ahead, casting an eerie shadow over the street. I felt a chill run down my spine. Was I about to uncover something dangerous, or was it all just a misunderstanding? Before I could even think more, I received another call. "Are you close?" the voice asked again, this time even more desperate. "I'm almost there," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "I'll help you." I was almost at the door, the old library. The mystery was about to unfold, and I needed to be ready. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3. I stood in front of the old library, feeling the cold air hit my face as I looked up at the dark, abandoned building. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle, but the fog in the air made the place look even more mysterious. The tall windows were covered in grime, and the door was slightly ajar, creaking in the wind. Something didn't feel right. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The inside was dark, with only a few flickering lights scattered across the room. Dust floated in the air, and the smell of old books filled the space. The floor creaked under my feet as I moved forward, my heart racing in anticipation. "Hello," I called out, my voice echoing in the empty space. No answer. Suddenly, I heard a soft voice from the back of the library, barely audible. "Help me." I rushed toward the sound, my steps hurried but careful on the slippery floor. As I turned the corner, I saw her, an older woman sitting on the ground, trembling. She looked scared, her eyes wide with fear. "I'm here to help," I said, trying to sound confident, even though my nerves were getting the best of me. She looked up, and for a moment it felt like time stopped. Then she spoke again in a faint voice. "I need your help. Fast." I knelt beside her, noticing the panic in her eyes. I tried to understand what was happening, but everything seemed so confusing. "What happened?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, trying to comfort her. But she didn't respond right away. Instead, she whispered something that I barely caught. "I saw them. I saw them in the shadows. They are coming for me." The words didn't make sense, but the fear in her voice was real. I needed to figure out what was going on, and fast. "Who? Who are you talking about?" I asked, but she didn't seem to hear me. She was shaking now, visibly distressed. I was starting to feel overwhelmed. The only thing I could think of was the English I'd learned so far. I needed to use it if I was going to get to the bottom of this. "Where are they?" I asked, trying to get more information. Her eyes flickered, and she finally spoke. "They're in the shadows, behind you." She pointed weakly toward the dark corner of the room. I turned around, my heart racing. The shadows were thick, almost suffocating. I couldn't see anything, but I felt like I wasn't alone. "Don't worry," I said, trying to reassure her, even though I didn't know if I was reassuring myself. "I'm going to get you out of here!" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but I knew I had to call for help. I dialed the number of a local officer. "Hello, Officer Bennett? I'm at the old library. There's something strange going on here." "I need backup now," I said, trying to stay calm. "Are you okay?" Officer Bennett asked on the other end of the line. "I think so," I said, "but we need to get here fast. There's a woman, and I think she's in danger." "Stay there, Alex! We're coming!" The line went dead. I stood up and turned back to the woman. She was still trembling, her eyes fixed on the shadows. "They're coming," she repeated, her voice trembling. "You have to hurry." I knew I had to do something. The only thing I could think of was to ask her more questions, to keep her focused. "Who are they?" I asked, hoping to get some clue about what was happening. But before she could respond, the door to the library slammed shut, causing us both to jump. "Stay close to me," I said, taking a step forward and instinctively placing myself between her and the door. I didn't know what was out there, but I wasn't about to let anyone or anything hurt her. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. The air inside the library had grown heavy, the silence almost suffocating. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. The shadows seemed to grow darker, more menacing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. The woman was still huddled in the corner, her eyes darting around nervously, scanning the dark corners of the room. I moved closer to her, trying to stay calm. The sound of the door slamming shut had only heightened the tension, and I knew that we couldn't stay in this place much longer. "Stay with me," I said, trying to sound reassuring. My hand instinctively reached out to hers. "We'll get through this. But before she could respond, a cold, chilling voice echoed through the room. "You shouldn't be here." I froze. The voice came from the farthest corner of the library. A figure emerged from the darkness, tall and menacing. I couldn't see his face clearly, but his presence sent a shiver down my spine. My instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. I had to think fast. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to sound brave, though my heart was pounding in my chest. "What do you want?" The figure stepped closer, and I could see the faint outline of a dark cloak that fluttered with each movement. His eyes glinted in the low light. "You've interfered with things you don't understand," he said, his voice calm, almost too calm. "This woman, she's not who you think she is." I glanced at the woman, but her face was a mix of fear and confusion. She looked at me, her mouth moving as if she were trying to say something, but no words came out. "Don't listen to him," she managed to whisper. "They're watching us. They know everything." My mind was spinning. This was no ordinary case. I had no idea what I was dealing with, but I knew I had to stay calm. I had to keep my cool and figure out what to do. But how could I protect her if I didn't even understand what was going on? I took a step toward the figure, my heart still racing. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not leaving her here with you," I said, my voice steady despite the fear I felt creeping up on me. The figure laughed, a sound that echoed eerily through the library. "You think you can stop me? You don't even know how to communicate with her. You're speaking a language you don't even understand." His words hit me like a slap. I couldn't let it show, but his words stung. This was more than just a language barrier. This was about something much bigger than I could have imagined. "Where are they?" I asked, trying to regain control of the situation. I needed to know who they were. "Who are you talking about?" The figure stepped forward, raising a hand as if to silence me. "You're asking the wrong questions," he said. "You should be asking why you're here." I didn't have time to waste. "What do you want?" I demanded, my frustration boiling over. "Tell me who you are." He smiled, but it wasn't a reassuring smile. It was cold, calculating. "I am what you fear most. But you, Alex, you're nothing. Just a man trying to solve a puzzle. But the pieces will never fit because you don't speak the right language." I frowned, confused. "Language?" I repeated, not sure if I understood him correctly. "Exactly," he said, his voice growing colder. "It's all about language, and you're failing at it." Suddenly, everything clicked. The language he was referring to wasn't just about words. It was about understanding the situation, the hidden meanings beneath the surface. I had been focusing so hard on the English language, thinking that if I just spoke it well enough, I would be able to solve the case. But I was missing something deeper. I turned to the woman, realizing that she might hold the key to this mystery. "What's going on?" I asked her again, but this time with a different approach. "What do you know?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. But there was something else there too, something that told me she knew more than she was letting on. "It's not about words, Alex. It's about understanding the truth. And the truth is, you're in way over your head." Before I could respond, the lights flickered, and the figure in the corner of the room disappeared into the shadows, leaving us alone once again. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5. The library was eerily silent now, the only sound coming from the occasional drip of water leaking from the roof. The figure had vanished, and the woman, though still visibly shaken, seemed to calm down slightly. I was left standing in the dim light, trying to make sense of what had just happened. "Alex, you need to listen carefully," the woman whispered, her voice trembling. "You can't solve this with words alone. The language you need isn't the one you think." Her words were like a jolt to my system. What did she mean by that? I had been so focused on speaking English, using phrases like, "Where is," and "What do you mean?" But now it seemed like there was something deeper I wasn't seeing. Maybe it was time to break it down. "Let's think about this logically," I said, trying to regain control of the situation. I'm here to help you, and to do that, I need to understand what's going on. Can you tell me more about these people? She looked up at me, and for a moment I could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. The language is in your actions, not just your words. You've been speaking English, but it's more about how you react, how you listen, and how you understand what's really happening. Her statement struck me like a revelation. It wasn't just about mastering vocabulary or using perfect grammar. It was about understanding context, about using what I knew to interact with the world around me. English wasn't just a tool to speak, it was a way to navigate the situations I faced. This made me think of our previous conversation, where I had asked, "Where are you?" and "What do you mean?" These were simple phrases, but they had been so crucial to understanding the situation. I turned to the woman again, my mind racing. "So it's not just about speaking English correctly?" She nodded, her eyes still wide with fear. "No, it's about how you respond to what's around you. English helps you communicate, but you also have to understand what people are really saying beyond the words." I realized that I had been looking for clear-cut answers, expecting language to be the only key to this puzzle, but it wasn't. The language of the situation, of reading between the lines, was just as important. Okay, I said, thinking out loud. I need to look at everything differently. I need to listen to the situation, not just focus on the language. I paused, trying to gather my thoughts. Let's focus on what's important right now. Key phrases and educational breakdown. At this point, I want to take a moment to break down some important phrases from our conversation and explain how they can be used in different situations. Where are you? A simple and essential question that can be used to ask someone's location. It's useful when trying to meet someone or when you're lost and need directions. Example, "Where are you? I can't find you." You can also use this in situations where you need more details. "Where are you from?" when asking about someone's origin, or "Where are you going?" when asking about someone's destination. What do you mean? This is a common phrase to ask for clarification. If someone says something confusing or unexpected, this is your go-to phrase. Example, "You're saying something strange." What do you mean? It's great for conversation when you're unsure about what the other person is trying to communicate. "What do you mean by that?" can also be used when you need more explanation. "They're watching us." This phrase was crucial in this chapter because it reflects a deeper meaning, the importance of awareness in a situation. It's not just about the words, but also about noticing and reacting to what's happening around you. Example, "Be careful, they're watching us." In everyday situations, this could be used metaphorically to refer to people who might be paying attention to you or your actions. "I can feel that they're watching us" could mean you sense someone is keeping an eye on you in a crowded space. "You need to listen carefully." A reminder that listening is just as important as speaking in any conversation. It's crucial to pick up on what people are really trying to say, especially when emotions are high or when there's danger. Example, "You need to listen carefully to what she's saying. Every word counts." Listening carefully is key in many situations, from interviews to casual conversations, especially when you're learning a new language. These phrases have shown us that language is more than just words. It's about understanding context, reading the situation, and reacting accordingly. As we move forward, let's keep practicing these expressions and think about how they can help us in various real-life scenarios. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6. Now that we've learned some important phrases and understood the deeper meaning of language in our story, it's time to put what we've learned into practice. This is your chance to interact and use English in real-life situations, just like Alex did. Let's go through a few practical scenarios together. You'll need to use the phrases we've covered so far. Ready? Let's begin. Scenario 1, asking for directions. Imagine you're in a new city and you need to find a place. You don't know the location, and the only language spoken is English. Here's the situation. You see someone on the street and you need to ask, "Where are you?" or "Where is the nearest cafe?" Now try saying this out loud. "Where is the nearest cafe?" Pause for a moment and repeat it to practice your pronunciation. This simple phrase is one of the most useful in everyday situations when you need to ask for directions. It's direct and clear. Scenario 2. Clarifying information. In this case, imagine you hear something that doesn't make sense. You need to ask for more information. You're having a conversation, and someone says, "The cafe is closed today because of the storm." You respond by saying, "What do you mean?" This helps you understand better, especially when things are confusing or unclear. Pause and say, "What do you mean?" out loud to practice. This is a great phrase to use whenever you need clarification. Scenario 3. Feeling watched. Let's imagine you feel like someone is following you. You want to tell your friend, but you're not sure how to express it in English. You can say, "They're watching us." Now try using it in a sentence. "I feel like they're watching us. What should we do?" Repeat after me. "They're watching us." This phrase is useful when you're trying to express concern or notice something unusual. It's a great phrase for feeling alert and aware of your surroundings. Now, here's the challenge for you. Take one of these scenarios and use the phrases we've learned. Practice speaking and writing them down in the comments. For example, "Where is the nearest cafe?" Or, "What do you mean by that?" Feel free to experiment and try different sentences with the same phrases. This activity helps you get comfortable using real-life phrases and improves your fluency in situations where communication matters the most. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7. As I stood there in the dimly lit library, the mystery was far from over. But what I had learned tonight about language, understanding, and responding was just as important as solving the case itself. English wasn't just a tool for communication, it was a way of connecting with the world around me, reading between the lines, and understanding what people were really saying. Through the phrases we practiced, "Where are you?" "What do you mean?" and "They're watching us." I realized that language is more than just words. It's about recognizing context, listening carefully, and reacting appropriately. It's about using what you know to navigate the world and face challenges, no matter how big or small. Remember, learning English doesn't happen overnight. It's a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to fluency. Just like Alex faced his fears, you too can face the challenge of mastering English. And with every conversation, every practice session, you're one step closer to becoming more confident in the language. So take a deep breath and keep going. Every time you speak, every time you practice, you're making progress. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's how we learn. Keep using the phrases we've practiced today in your everyday life. Try them out in conversations, or even when you're thinking to yourself. You'll see how much more confident you'll become over time. And remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. The more you practice, the easier it gets. Keep challenging yourself, and soon English will become second nature. If you enjoyed this lesson and the journey with Alex, don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will help you learn English in fun and practical ways. Keep practicing, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next chapter.